Why do we do what we do? I mean, why do I make these videos? Why do I have a YouTube channel? Why do I go out in public and tell people about Jesus? Why do I give away Bibles? You know, shouldn't we just leave people alone, let them do their thing, not bug them, not push them, not push on our beliefs on other people? Well, for several reasons. In the third verse of Jude, and it's the first chapter because there's only one chapter in the book of Jude. Jude, who's Jesus' brother, tells us that we are to contend earnestly for the faith that was once and for all delivered to us. Contend earnestly. That doesn't sound like sit back and whatever happens. The other thing is, if you're a Christian, if you consider yourself a follower of Jesus, what if Jesus hadn't been aggressive in sharing the truth? There would be no Christians at all. If he hadn't come to earth, if he hadn't had a 3 or 3.5 year preaching ministry, if he hadn't made people like the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes mad by what he was teaching, you wouldn't be a Christian. Furthermore, if guys like Peter and James and Paul and Barnabas and Silas hadn't made a big deal about the faith, hadn't gone all over the world teaching that there is only one true way. After all, Jesus does say, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. So there's only one way. Those guys, the early apostles, weren't content with letting people believe whatever they wanted. It's not one of those bumper stickers that says coexist and you got all the religious symbols. You've got the crescent moon from Islam. You've got the Star of David to represent Judaism. You've got the yin-yang symbol. And you've got the cross. They're all together. That's not what Jesus says. He says, I am the way. I'm the only way. No one comes to the Father but me. Guys like Peter and James were so pushy about their faith that they were thrown in jail for it. Guys like Paul and Barnabas were so pushy about their faith that they started riots multiple times in multiple cities. They were so pushy about their faith that people were mad enough at them that they followed them from city to city, trying to stop what they were doing, preaching against what Paul and Barnabas or Paul and Silas were teaching. Jesus was so pushy that they killed him. And yes, they killed all the other apostles too, with the exception of John the Baptist. Or excuse me, not John the Baptist, John the Revelator. And they deep fried him. They boiled him in oil and he survived. And then they sent him into exile on Patmos, a mining colony, where he lived as slave labor. This whole idea of you do you and I'll do me and I'll have my truth and you have your truth and just let me have my truth and don't try to force your beliefs on me isn't Christian. Now, yes, we need to do it in a respectful and loving manner. We don't need to be mean to people. But Jesus was pretty forceful. He did things like calling the Pharisees and Sadducees a brood of vipers. You're a bunch of slimy snakes. He did things like sitting down and braiding a whip and cleansing the temple. And we're not to push beyond a certain point. Jesus told the disciples, when you go somewhere and they don't receive your message, shake the dust off of your feet and move on to the next town. The New Testament also says, do not cast your pearls before swine. So there is a point when somebody refuses to listen to the message, refuses the gospel, when they make themselves their own God and say, I can come up with my own theology, there's multiple paths to God, then you walk away. But you have to have a conversation to walk away from. You have to be a little bit pushy. You have to be willing to say, no, Buddhism is not right. No, Islam is not right. No, Mormonism, LDS, is not right. No, Hinduism is not right. No, New Age is not right. No, atheism is not right. No, being homosexual is not okay. No, being a transvestite is not okay. The same as that we would say, no, being an alcoholic is not okay. Being a thief is not okay. Being a liar is not okay. Morals are not subjective. They come from God. But we don't want to make waves. We don't want to rock the boat. Jesus made waves. Paul made waves. Peter made waves. James made waves. And if the early Christians that weren't the apostles weren't passionate about the message, about the truth of the gospel, then you wouldn't be a Christian, because they wouldn't have spent hours and hours and hours and days and years hand copying the Bible so that you would have it. That is some serious dedication. What level of dedication do we have? Are we willing to step on people's toes, metaphorically? Are we willing to stand up for the truth? Are we concerned about people enough to let them know you're going to hell? Now, you don't necessarily have to tell them that they're going to hell. I would start by sharing the gospel, which the word gospel means good news or good story. The good story of Jesus Christ, that he came to seek and save the lost, to die for them. But there are times where it's appropriate to say, if you die in your sin, you will be eternally lost. If we don't do something, if we don't say something, we don't care. It's all right with me if those people go to hell. I'm saved. I'm going to heaven. Great. What about your neighbor? What about your Uncle Charlie? What about your cousin Susie? What about your friend Jim? What about all the people in the world that are lonely, that need us to be aggressive in loving them. The widows and orphans that need to be taken care of. What about your Buddhist neighbor who spends all day by himself alone in his house? Doesn't he need to know about the love of Jesus? Do we not care? Shouldn't we be compassionate? Shouldn't we earnestly contend for the faith? Have you ever really thought about, are you living out your life the way that Christ wants you to?